of pairs formation flying coming your way. And here, putting up in front of you now, please welcome the Fireflies. Now, those of you who were with us last night will almost have seen these aircraft, but you would mainly have seen a pair of neon lights going through the sky and a lot of sparklers and fireworks coming off the wings of these very same aircraft. They are RV4s out of the Van's factory lineup of aircraft, enormously successful kit-built aircraft, the sort of thing you can put together in your own backyard. And today, flying Nigel Reed and John Corley, giving you a demonstration of outstanding pairs formation work, and something that takes literally years of background flying work, and then of course many weeks of formation practicing before you get to this standard. Nigel's job, of course, to keep the aircraft formation on the right track at the right height, making all the turns and calls at the correct time. We'll drop into the cockpit maybe a bit later on and you can hear the smoothness of how he calls this through. And tucked up alongside there, John Corley. Both these guys got huge amounts of aviation experience in UK, so very adventurous and fun stuff with them as well. We'll just sit back for a moment and enjoy it. Of course, the smoke again, once again, all environmentally sound. It's just baby oil and that Ondina stuff coming on now as they pull up into the next figure. The team itself was put together in 2015 by John Gowdy and Andy Durston, both of whom have been flying here this weekend. We haven't seen John yet, but we will later on in a completely different aircraft. They found these aircraft actually across in the US. They didn't build them themselves. One was picked up in Baltimore, the other one in Houston. They dismantled them, brought them across in a container, and then personally fitted them as necessary for their own style of flying, and of course their nighttime shows as well. One of the most successful home-built aircraft, as I mentioned, by a seriously long way. The RV4 now it's celebrating its 40th year in aviation, but well over 10,000 of the whole range of Van's series of aircraft in 9 different variants have been built. And literally, you can do this, I meant it, in your backyard, in your garage, whatever. You can get it together, you just assemble it, of course, to get it to an airfield to test it. Fitted with Lycoming engines, with fixed-pitch propellers, the overall thing producing 160 horsepower, which is pretty neat for a relatively lightweight aircraft. A couple of seats this in tandem formation, as I say, one behind the other, but they've got dual control so you can fly it from either seat, and a real versatile speed range, anything down to 50 right up to 200 miles an hour. So a delightful cruising and a touring aircraft. And watch this manoeuvre now, it's great because as one completes a lovely loop, the other one will do the same and then just tuck in behind the leader once he completes that little barrel roll. It's a great piece of choreography. Don't need a big airfield for these sort of aircraft either, just need about 300 meters of runway. And great cruising, nice little aircraft just to never cross to the Irish Sea there, or across the Channel down to France, bit of room for the luggage, but also fully aerobatic. So if that's your bag, as well as just some lightweight cruising flying, then you can do anything up to +6 and -3G with these aircraft. Promised a quick drop into the cockpit, and there Nigel Reed just giving the directions. And of course, absolutely imperative, and of course most formation teams you'll hear that the execution of the move is right on the very end of the last word mentioned. So now, on that W right at the end is when they actually go into the manoeuvre. means they're pulling up, the G coming on. And he called for a quarter clover, and there it is, that little twist you put in at the top there, and you come out. And oh, they went for a split this time. A very delightful manoeuvre. They both complete a roll. Of course, it can be tricky at times if the wind is just pushing heavily in one direction. It's not so bad at the moment. It's pretty much straight in on what we call the B-axis, completing there at either end, left and right, what we call a half Cuban. As they got to the top of the loop, it's almost as if they're going into the loop. They look back over their shoulders, check that all is well, just a little check on the stick, roll it through 180 degrees, and then head back towards each other. Oh, wonderfully concentric activity. Coming round to what they call the derry, where they roll one way, but they're actually going to turn another. A classic sort of fighter pilot thing developed by the famous John Derry many years ago. So making sure that they both have a tally on each other before they start the next manoeuvre. Once they're visual, they can of course then run in to miss each other. Big photo shot coming up now. They switch the smoke on and off. All teams do this. It's because you never have enough smoke to run through an entire display. So they use it at the key moments, either partly for design, but also for safety. It helps them. You can see clearly these aircraft not easily seen from each other. So the smoke helps them identify and, of course, maintain safe positions against each other. Pulling up now into what's called a quarter clover. You've seen it, they pull up, and instead of going all the way through the loop, they'll put in a little twist. Here it comes, there's the twist. And then they'll pull through, all the way through, and roll out to the right-hand side. Full time in Air Atlantic, flying all sorts of vintage aircraft, but tremendous pair of guys, and of course you just get to know each other so well when you're doing this sort of formation work. But putting up now for their final manoeuvre, dedicated to all the ladies in the council team here who have been working so hard to bring this to you for your enjoyment today. The Heart, you've been watching Nigel Reed and John Corley in the Fireflies.